Why seeking enlightenment stops you from finding it. We all want answers. We want to know why we exist, what our purpose is, where we're going, and what it all means. It's almost instinctual, the urge to seek something higher, something deeper, something that finally feels like truth. That's why so many of us are drawn to the idea of enlightenment. We chase it through books, retreats, philosophies, religions, psychedelics, spiritual communities, and YouTube rabbit holes filled with gurus and mystics. We meditate, we journal, we visualize, we fast, and we chant, all in the name of awakening. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more desperately we seek enlightenment, the further away we get from it. Not because enlightenment is elusive, but because seeking itself creates the very illusion that enlightenment is somewhere else. Let's start with a simple observation. If you're seeking something, what are you really saying? You're saying you don't have it. You're saying there's a gap between you and the thing you want. And that assumption becomes the lens through which you see everything. You divide your life into before enlightenment and after enlightenment. But every moment becomes a test. Am I closer now? Am I doing it right? Is this the breakthrough? But ironically, this very mindset, this striving, this hunger, this need to achieve keeps you entangled in the same cycle of dissatisfaction that the idea of enlightenment was supposed to free you from in the first place.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And that's the paradox. Enlightenment, if it means anything at all, isn't something you get. It's something you see. It's not a prize at the end of a journey. It's the realization that there was never a journey to begin with. The idea that you are incomplete, that you have to become something better or more spiritual or more evolved, that's the illusion. That's the ego dressing itself up in spiritual robes. And the more you try to fix yourself, the more you reinforce the belief that you're broken. The more you chase the light, the more you convince yourself you're in darkness. But let's pause and ask something deeper. Why do you really want enlightenment? Is it because you want peace? Freedom from suffering? A sense of clarity? Those are beautiful desires. But what if I told you that those things aren't blocked by your current level of awareness, they're blocked by your belief that you need to chase something else to deserve them? Imagine a cat trying to catch its own tail. It spins, it leaps, it exhausts itself. But the tail was never separate. The cat just didn't realize it was already whole. This is where the teachings of Zen, Taoism, and even certain strands of Advaita Vedanta hit you with what feels like nonsense, but it's not. It's the deepest kind of wisdom hidden in contradiction. Stop seeking, they say. Do nothing, just be. And for someone wired for achievement, that feels like failure. It feels like giving up. But it's actually a radical act of trust. It's letting go of the idea that truth is something to be earned, and instead realizing it's something to be noticed. Right here, right now, before you meditate, before you burn sage, before you perfect your posture or memorize another quote from a mystic who probably never meant to be quoted in the first place. Here's a question that might shake you. What if you're already enlightened, but your obsession with becoming enlightened is the only thing preventing you from realizing it? What if the very idea of a future awakening is the veil that covers your present awareness? You see, the mind loves to chase goals. That's its nature. It thrives on problems and solutions. But enlightenment isn't a problem to solve. It's what remains when the mind stops needing to fix everything. It's what you see when you stop looking through the lens of lack. And I know what you might be thinking. If I stop seeking, won't I just stagnate? Won't I be stuck? But that fear of being stuck is your ego again, terrified of losing control. Because the ego survives through striving. It defines itself by its goals, its image, its spiritual progress. But who are you without all of that? Who are you without the constant effort to become something more? That's the terrifying, beautiful question at the heart of it all. And it's only in the silence after that question, when you stop answering it, stop defending, stop running, that the real answer begins to emerge. Not in words, not in thoughts, but in presence. So if the first step toward awakening is to stop seeking, what do you do instead? You notice, you sit, you breathe, You feel the raw aliveness of this moment without trying to manipulate it. You stop using spirituality as a self-improvement project and start using it as a mirror. You observe the one who wants to awaken. Who is that? What is it trying to escape? What is it afraid of? And when you stay with those questions long enough, not answering them, but letting them dissolve, you begin to see something strange. The seeker was never real, just a thought, just a dream. And without the seeker, what's left? Stillness, spaciousness, reality unfiltered. So maybe the most enlightened thing you can do right now is not to chase another insight, but to ask yourself, what if this is it? What if there's nothing else to find? Would you still keep running? The illusion of progress, why spiritual growth is a trap disguised as purpose. We live in a culture obsessed with progress. We measure everything, our careers, our fitness, our relationships, even our happiness, on a scale of improvement. And spirituality, in the modern world, has become no different. We've turned awakening into a checklist, a ladder, a game of levels. We speak in terms of higher consciousness, vibrational frequency, 5D awareness, as if we're playing some divine video game where enlightenment is the end boss. And here's the trap: the more we believe in spiritual progress, the more we reinforce the core illusion that who we are right now isn't enough. We don't call it ego anymore. We call it growth. It sounds noble, doesn't it? I'm working on myself. I'm healing. I'm evolving. But stop and really look what's hiding beneath that language. Often, it's the same old self-judgment, just dressed in spiritual clothes. You're not meditating to be still, you're meditating to become better. You're not surrendering, you're subtly trying to gain control over your inner world. You're trying to use spirituality to fix the version of yourself you've decided is broken. So the illusion continues: I'm not there yet. I need more time, more practice, more insight, more tools. And every step you take toward your imagined future self moves you further from the radical truth that you are already home. But let's ask something uncomfortable. What if there is no spiritual progress? What if the entire idea of becoming more awakened, more conscious, more divine is just another ego trap? Think about it. If you're measuring your growth, who's doing the measuring? Who is the one keeping score? It's the mind. The same mind that's always been afraid. The same mind that needs identity, continuity, a sense of control. So it hijacks your spiritual path and turns it into a personal project. And just like that, your quest for peace becomes a stress-inducing journey of inadequacy. The greatest masters, the real ones, not the influencers, not the merch-selling gurus, but the ones who disappeared into forests and silence, never talked about levels. They didn't map the steps to awakening. They didn't sell you a system. They pointed, again and again, to this moment, this breath, this awareness. They said things like, chop wood, carry water. Why? Because the truth isn't somewhere else. It's always here. But the mind doesn't want to hear that. Because here isn't dramatic. It's not impressive. It doesn't feed the fantasy of becoming someone transcendent. But here is ordinary, and the ego hates being ordinary. But let's go deeper. Why do we cling to the idea of progress? Because it gives us a sense of purpose. It gives us a timeline. It makes us feel like we're going somewhere. And that's deeply comforting, especially when life is chaotic, uncertain, painful. Progress gives us hope. But here's the paradox, that hope is built on a lie. The lie that you are separate from truth, that you are on your way to becoming something you are not yet. And that lie keeps you perpetually running in circles, always seeking, never arriving. But what if your only job is not to grow, but to see, and to wake up right now, not in 5 years, not after your next retreat, not after you've done enough shadow work or cleared enough karma. Right now, what if everything you've been trying to become? You already are, but you're too busy looking at the map to see where you're standing. Imagine a person in the middle of a beautiful field, holding a GPS, trying to find the field. They're spinning, confused, frustrated. All the while, they're already there. That's how most of us live. We obsess over the path and ignore the ground beneath our feet. We mistake movement for meaning. But real awakening isn't about movement. It's about stillness. Not passive stillness, but the stillness of clarity. The stillness that sees through the illusion of becoming. So what do we do with this? Do we stop meditating? Stop reading, reflecting, exploring? No, but we shift why we do it. We stop trying to get somewhere and start using every practice as a doorway into presence. We stop measuring our progress and start noticing our resistance. We stop believing that more effort will bring truth and start realizing that letting go is the most radical act of all. Here's a question to sit with, and I mean really sit with it. If you stopped believing in growth, who would you be? If you dropped every label, every metric, every story of how far you've come or how far you still need to go, what would remain? Would you feel lost, or would you finally feel free? Because maybe, just maybe, the most enlightened version of you isn't the one who's grown the most. It's the one who's stopped pretending there was ever anything to fix. The seeker is the sought, how the one looking is already what it's looking for. There's a moment on the spiritual path, if you're lucky or honest or completely exhausted, where something strange begins to dawn on you. You've been searching perhaps for years. You've read the books, you've listened to the teachings, you've done the practices, repeated the mantras, gone on retreats. And yet, that feeling of "I'm not there yet" keeps lingering. You think you're getting closer. You feel glimmers of it, those brief moments of stillness, of joy, of connectedness. But they never last. And then, either by grace or despair, you stop. Not because you found what you were looking for, but because you're too tired to keep looking. And in that silence, in that surrender, something clicks. The one who's been searching is the very thing it's been searching for. It sounds like a riddle, like a paradox wrapped in a mystery. But it's not. It's the most direct truth there is. You've been looking for peace, but the looking itself was the disturbance. You've been chasing fulfillment, but the chase was the emptiness. You've been trying to find yourself, never realizing that the one trying is already the self you're trying to find. The seeker is the sought. The observer is the observed. And that's not spiritual poetry, it's a deep, unavoidable realization when the mind finally gets quiet enough to stop creating distance between what is and what should be. But let's not romanticize it. This realization isn't always blissful, but sometimes it's devastating. Because it means the entire structure of your identity, the one who thinks it's lacking, evolving, progressing, that whole story collapses. And without that story, who are you? But not a name, not a role, not a person on a path, just this awareness, this presence, this strange, formless aliveness that's been here the whole time, watching, waiting, being. It has no goal, no future, no past. But it doesn't need to awaken because it never slept. It doesn't need to evolve because it was never unwhole. It's you, the real you, but not the you think you are. And here's where the ego panics, because if there's nothing left to seek, then what's the point? What do I do now? How do I live? And that's the final trick. You see, the ego survives through seeking. It needs a problem to solve, a mountain to climb, a self to improve. That's how it maintains control. But when you truly see that the seeker is the sought, the ego's game falls apart. There's nothing left to chase. And with that collapse comes a terrifying, beautiful freedom. You stop needing to become. You start simply being. But this isn't nihilism. It's not apathy. It's not giving up. In fact, it's the beginning of a whole new kind of living, one rooted not in becoming something, but in expressing what already is. You're no longer acting out of lack, out of fear, out of some desperate attempt to complete yourself. You're acting from fullness, from clarity, and from love, not as an emotion, but as the natural state that emerges when all resistance ends. You begin to see everything differently. Life isn't a puzzle anymore. It's a dance. You don't relate to others as roles or identities, you see yourself in them. The boundaries blur. The judgments fade. You stop needing to fix people, or fix yourself, or fix the world. Not because you're indifferent, but because you realize nothing was ever truly broken. Even suffering, even confusion, even the long years of seeking, they were all part of the unfolding, part of the same awareness playing hide and seek with itself. So, let me ask you something that might change how you see yourself forever. If the one who seeks is already the one who is sought, what happens when you stop trying to find and simply allow yourself to be? What if silence isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of truth? What if peace isn't something to achieve, but the thing that remains when the search ends? And perhaps the most radical idea of all, what if you've never, not even for a second, been separate from what you're looking for? Stop running. Why being still is the most revolutionary act of all. We live in a world that worships motion. From the moment we're born, we're conditioned to move toward goals, toward success, toward identity. We measure our worth by how far we've come and how fast we're going. Even in spiritual circles, this obsession persists. We call it growth, ascension, transcendence. But beneath all the flowery language is the same old engine of striving. And in that relentless motion, we forget the one thing that actually has the power to free us: stillness. Not the stillness of a paused body, but the stillness of a stopped mind. The stillness that comes when the chase ends. The stillness that doesn't want anything, fix anything, or improve anything. The stillness that simply is. The truth is, most of us are terrified of stopping. Because when we stop, we have to face what we've been running from. Not just the big traumas or regrets, but the quiet void underneath it all. The sense that if we're not doing something, becoming something, proving something, then we're nothing. That fear is so deep, so primal, that we keep running even when we're exhausted. We fill every silence with noise. We turn every practice into a project. But we scroll, we strive, we compare. All because we're afraid to look into the mirror of stillness and see what's really there.
But here's the secret, and it's one of the most powerful truths you'll ever hear. Stillness doesn't kill you. It reveals you. It shows you that the void you were so afraid of isn't empty, it's spacious. It's not death, it's clarity. When you stop running, you don't disappear. What disappears is the false self you thought you had to maintain. The masks fall off. The noise dies down. And what's left isn't some grand, enlightened version of you. It's the real you. The one who is never in a hurry. The one who didn't need to prove anything. The one who knows without needing to explain that being is enough. This is why stillness is so radical. Because it breaks the cycle. It ends the game. It says, I'm not playing anymore, and in a world addicted to movement, choosing to be still is the most rebellious act there is. Because it means you're no longer buying into the myth that you're incomplete. You're no longer letting the world or your own mind define your value by how much you do or how far you go. You're reclaiming your existence, not as a project, but as a presence. And something beautiful happens in that presence. Life returns to simplicity. You start noticing things you were too busy to see: the way light moves across a wall, the texture of your breath, the subtle beauty in someone's eyes. You stop needing to have a purpose because being here becomes its own purpose. You stop needing the future to be better because this moment becomes more real than any imagined outcome. You become, in the truest sense, alive. But let's be honest, it's not easy. The world will keep demanding your attention. Your mind will keep whispering that you're falling behind. The ego will keep telling you to do more, be more, chase more. And in those moments, you'll have to choose: will you keep running? Or will you stop, breathe, and remember that the truth doesn't live at the end of some long journey? It's here, always here, quietly waiting beneath the noise. So let me leave you with one final question, one that could change everything if you let it. What would happen if you stopped running, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually? What if you chose stillness not as an escape, but as a return? Could you sit with yourself without goals, without roles, without improvement, just you as you are, and see that as sacred? Because maybe the most enlightened thing you'll ever do is nothing at all.